I call to order this regular select board meeting for Underhill. It is January 11th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. Are there any adjustments to the agenda that you can think of?
Not for me.
I have none, Dan.
Moving on then, we can invite people who would like to make a public comment. You can do that at this time. You want to step up to the mic, introduce yourself, and you can make a public comment and press the button so that it's green.
Pete Saja, Dean Road. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Select Board. I understand that with the presentation of the Class 4 road report that it's not the opportunity for any input or feedback, but I'm hoping that there will be the opportunity at least to ask for a clarification or two on some of the wording. And I know that this isn't the opportunity to get too deep into the weeds, but when Rick is done making his presentation, will there at least be the opportunity to ask for some clarification simply in the wording of the report?
So I'm not sure how the other members of the board feel about that, but my thought would be is that once we receive the report and accept the report from the committee, that we would likely hold or discuss having a public hearing and give everyone that may or may not be affected in town an opportunity to discuss that or have an opportunity to give feedback to the board. So we might have a special meeting sometime, before, I'm guessing, town meeting, but that would be my thought, but I don't know how the others feel.
Understood. Okay.
I would suggest, Pete, that you or anyone else who has input or questions, that you put that in writing. That way we can organize them.
Yep. It's just it's a technical wording question. It's nothing to,
Right. And it might
digest.
It might be very routine, but we don't want to be editing here with
Understood.
a large group.
So now would not be the opportunity to
Right,
express a
but
curious.
if you write it down in an email or a note,
Yeah.
So that we can have it when we discuss it, and we can, if it's inconsequential, it won't be much of a debate.
Very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that'll work.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Since Rick's not here, do you want to skip to town highway items, or how do you feel?
I think town highway items would be good. I'd like to know about the magnesium chloride. And so Russ, if you could take it from here.
So you'll have in your packet, I don't have a copy with me, I didn't bring my computer, but for the past, I don't know how many years, we've been using a product called calcium chloride for dust control on our dirt roads. And in talking with our distributor, he has tried in the past and with no success, but to change what we use to a magnesium chloride versus calcium chloride. And we had a great discussion with him, and some of the benefits of the magnesium chloride versus calcium is the, what's the wording I want to use? The
safety?
Well, there's safety, but it's like, what it does to your vehicles and what it does to corrosiveness, right? So calcium chloride, which is about 100% corrosive, the magnesium is about 40% corrosive. And then we can add an inhibitor to it, which brings it down to about 14% corrosive, which is not only good for our equipment, but is good for the townspeople's vehicles, any pets that could be walking, running, people running, so on in the roads. And so we're very interested in switching to this new type of chloride. We also found out that our chloride storage system is, our tanks are very outdated, and they do have a life expectancy, which surprised me on a poly tank, but they do. And our spray unit that we have in our current setup is a very, it's on an older trailer that we have to pull with our pickup, which is very difficult at times on certain roads. And the size of it requires a lot of trips back and forth to the shop. So what we've done with the company that we've purchased our chloride from, which is Innovative Surface Solutions, they're out of New York, is they have a program that we can get new storage tanks and a new spray unit if we sign on a 3-year contract. So if you look at your pricing, and it was mentioned that calcium chloride was probably going to be harder to get through rumors, and apparently it is, because we went from $1.11 a gallon to $1.53 a gallon with current pricing. And the magnesium chloride with the inhibitor is $1.28 a gallon. And in that $1.28 a gallon, that includes the new storage tanks and the new spray unit that we would, and at the end of the 3 years, we own all that. And in that 3 years, if something goes wrong with our spray unit, it is under warranty for those 3 years. They come and fix it and repair it or replace the engine or whatever requires. So what I would like to do is to sign on for this 3-year contract with Innovative Surface Solutions to get our new storage tanks and spray unit and switch to the magnesium chloride with the inhibitor to benefit everybody in the town of Underhill.
I move that we enter a contract for the magnesium chloride for a 3-year stint. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Discussion.
Before we go too far, do you think there's any sense into referring this to committee, to like the conservation committee, to see if that's a wise decision, or do you feel pretty comfortable with, based upon the information you've received?
Well, with the discussion that we had, I think last time about it, and this time I think it's better, with the magnesium. And I learned something new after driving on these dirt roads for 40 years. I didn't know I could get corrosion in the summer. Who would have thought? So anyway, I think that it sounds like a good deal with the tanks, and the tanks are ours after 3 years. And, I think it's a good move. Do you have any other concerns other than that?
Nope, that's it.
I think that the Conservation Commission would be jumping up and down on it.
I just have one quick question. Is the sprayer unit and that tank also involved in the whole package that we'd own in 3 years?
You're gonna be able to sell the old wagon? Oh. I'm ready for the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes carry this motion 2-0.
Okay to sign this contract, or would you like to sign it? My question is, would you like to sign this contract, Dan, or do I have the authority to sign it?
I'll sign it since we didn't make that a part of the motion,
Okay,
but
fair enough.
that'd be great. Thanks.
Road weather update.
So I'll move on just to the next thing, just our road update after this recent storm. I'd like to just start out by thanking the road crew, which consisted of myself, Jed Abear, Scott Kilpeck, and Ken Blodgett, along with Gordon Williamson and Wade Bosley, who offered his assistance on the Poker Hill side. Brad Holden, who helped a lot, and the Underhill Jericho Fire Department participated with helping get trees cut out of the road and just help monitoring the situation and making phone calls to Green Mountain Power, Vermont Electric, and who else. I think it all went over very well for what we had for damage in town. We had a lot of road closures with trees across, power lines down, so on. Still some places without power, but all roads are passable. Still a few that need some more trees cut out, but overall, one area we're plowing 6 inches of snow, the next road is a sheet of ice. But overall, everything went very well, and we are still in business here in Underhill. Everything's going good. And maybe another one right around the corner. We'll see.
Well, I was grateful that yesterday, the day after, was really relatively peaceful and people could work. And certainly the line crews could get out and straighten everything out rather than continuing the wind and the precipitation other than a little in the morning. So I think the restoration process was pretty good. I don't know if there's any outages yet, but I'm sure they're working on it. Thank you for all the work. So shall we move back?
Yeah, so Rick's here.
So we will be listening to a final report from this committee who, according to what's in my packet, they worked pretty hard. And I like the site visits and the comprehensive discussion. This is a non-binding report for the select board. And we will also bring this up in a public hearing, after, this presentation, so that we can have other public input. And as I mentioned, if you have something that comes up, jot a note down and put it in writing so that we can evaluate your comment to make it incorporate it in some way.
If I may, just an update. This is, I'm going to initially talk about our process, how we went about doing this job. That's an update to the process. And the second one is who was on the committee?
Mm-hmm.
Members of the committee. Maybe I'll start with that. The committee consisted of myself, Kelly Road, Andrew Blodgett, Hedgehog Hill Road, Ben Butler, Maple Ridge, but also having property on Downs Road and interest in Butler Road, Karen Davis, Stevensville Road, John Thomas, Tupper Road, John Vigato, Fuller Road, Barbara Yerrick, Krug Road, Nori Geary, who left the committee early because he went to sabbatical in Europe and essentially moved away, and Craig Lassiter, who it would have been very helpful to have a road maintenance person. He also moved out of town. You will notice that probably 4.5 of the individuals on the committee lived on Class 4 roads. So our process, we began our work in August of 22 and completed in November of 23. Our initial first couple of meetings consisted of identifying what our mission would be and a strategy to go about how we were going to assess and review the roads in a very logical and orderly way. We did site visits of all the Class 4 roads. This actually took the first couple of months, whereby we took detailed observations and asked quite a few questions. The members of the committee were essentially educated as to where these roads were, what they looked like, what condition they were in. Our intention was also to observe and refine the signage for the Class 4 roads. What we discovered is there was oftentimes differing and sometimes random and inappropriate signage on some of the roads. And as I think we received a while back, we provided recommendations to the select board a while back. One of the obvious observations was, were there any roads that should be the committee thought should be discontinued? Obvious roads, for instance. You might think of TH32, which hasn't been driven in we don't know how many decades. With the intention here that to simplify the overall question, and one of the most important questions, which is the lead into, should there be money allocated for Class 4 roads, even given that the towns in Vermont are not responsible to maintain Class 4 roads? Should we allocate money, and or if there was money, how would we allocate it in a fair manner? And one of the last significant items that we reviewed and thought about was, how can we simplify the requests of residents on Class 4 roads to do maintenance on their roads? Currently, our policy suggests, our ordinance suggests that any work, including plowing and grading, must first be an application or a request to the town should be submitted to process through the select board. And that's rarely ever followed. So we looked at the situation and we came up with some suggestions on how we could simplify that policy. And again, that's all, you've read it in our recommendations. So upon completion of the site visits, we did quite a bit of review and analysis, refined our observations, went back and looked if necessary. And then there was considerable debate among the committee and some outsiders as to what to do. We assessed the roads based on physical constraints was one of the most significant things. Some of these roads are in very primitive condition, you might say. May have inability to do adequate ditching or maintenance to any of our road standards, Class 3, for instance, standards. We looked at the ability or the inability to maintain the roads. We looked at the condition of the roads as they were currently. We considered the potential cost to upgrade to any reasonable standards. In some cases, it would be quite significant. And ultimately, we were looking to see if there was a benefit or a necessity to the town to retain these roads versus discontinue some of the roads. And we were thinking long-term, knowing that costs of everything are simply increasing. And we are challenged currently, the road highway department is challenged to maintain the current roads that we have. So the thought was, if there were some obvious roads that could be discontinued, this would lessen the burden on the town long-term. I have a note here, it says this was challenging. The committee did create, as you saw, data-driven matrix of the roads and these various conditions and criteria that I just mentioned. We summarized rationale for future potential state of these roads. And we looked at, to try to simplify it again, we looked at, are the roads that we would absolutely keep per necessity versus roads that were not essential or in the best interest of the town to keep. And again, we addressed the question of how and if to allocate dollars for maintenance, and or another way of looking at it was, could we allow residents to utilize or purchase materials at town costs, or utilize some town services at town costs, maybe contracts. If the town is contracting with an outside service, could the inhabitants, the residents of Class 4 roads benefit from those same reduced costs? And finally, we documented our conclusions. We also had at least one open town meeting on the subject. Public hearing. I almost thought we had two, but I know we had one. So you've seen the report, and let me jump right to, there were 5 roads that we did feel either out of necessity or strategy or otherwise would need to be retained by the town. Those are Covey Road, which is connected to an adjacent town's road. So it would be next to impossible to discontinue this, with 7 year-round homes on that road. English Settlement Road, which is a through road and has been used for emergency purposes in the past and would likely be required to do so in the future. Stevensville Road, which obviously accesses the state park. Krug Road, which is extremely short and is at the end, the Class 4 portion is the only logical location to do a town turnaround. Not to mention it butts up to a right-of-way into the range, federal range. And Fuller Road, which is the sole access to two town parcels and the portion of a third, as well as to the Cranebrook Trail. It's secondary access to this Cranebrook Trail. So those roads, it seemed quite logical that they would need to be retained. In terms of maintenance, we did suggest that even for these roads, that it be minimal, given that, again, the towns are not responsible to maintain the roads. And we suggested that there be a $2,500 adder to the culvert budget, knowing that that's one of the most significant and necessary maintenance issues on any road, and particular Class 4 roads. And we do outline a few details about some specifics on those roads that we're suggesting to be retained. One thing that was observed was most of the roads did not have, I don't know if you call it legal, but a legitimate turnaround for the road crew. The road crew was using private driveways, for instance, and somewhat inadequate, although I understand Krug Road was significantly upgraded by our road crew, and appropriately. But we did identify that that was an absolute necessity. We strongly recommended that for Stevensville Road, that we push for greater state funding to maintain that road, as well as suggestion that it be extended, the Class 3 portion, to the current turnaround at the top of the hill. So those were some of the obvious suggestions. Now, there were the balance of the roads. Fuller Road? Yeah. Question?
No, I was just saying that was included.
Oh, yeah.
Skipped over that part.
Right. Well, I mentioned earlier that it was actually sole access to two parcels, town parcels, that if we were to discontinue that road or throw it up, if you will, would inhibit or prohibit access to those town parcels. Now, what we're using those town parcels for, I do not know what the future would be, but they are town parcels. And it is a secondary access to Cranbrook Trail. So the balance of the roads, and here's where the greatest amount of debate took place on the committee. And this was particularly challenging because, as I mentioned before, 4 of our members lived on Class 4 roads. And it's clear that any of us who live on a private road or a Class 4 road or a Class 3 road for that matter would wish to have maintenance done at town cost as opposed to the private individuals. So it was a very difficult decision, in some cases more so than others, to recommend that these roads be discontinued. And discontinued meaning just sort of that's open to next step, become a private road or what have you, but no longer be a Class 4 road. And those are Tupper Road, TH32, Howard Road, Corbett Road, Dean Road, Downs Road, and Butler Road. Now, in terms of maintenance, on page 2, there are a couple of things that we are recommending, and I might read this, it makes easiest to understand. The Select Board grant all abutters to Class 4 roads blanket individual permission to grade, maintain, and plow Class 4 roads in accordance with the current road ordinance. And this would be on an annual basis. Again, this as opposed to requiring that the individuals on those roads come in and request permission. We're saying we should automatically grant that for simple maintenance of the roads. Now, part B of that is that permission to modify, alter, or dramatically change the roadways, for instance, the replacement of an additional culvert or addition of material beyond top coat, etc., should be granted on an individual basis upon application to the Select Board, which would be somewhat similar to what our road ordinance says today, except it says needing application for anything. Now we're saying just for those types of maintenance that are above and beyond normal maintenance. And I mentioned earlier that the committee recommends further that the road, Class 4 road abutters, be granted approval to procure road construction materials and associated vendor services at Town of Underhill tax exempt pricing. So we felt that those were legitimate compromises. And that these criteria be documented in a road policy as opposed to the road ordinance. A policy whereby it's more simple to adapt it to, how would you say, just maybe current or the logistic of how do you interpret the ordinance. In that case, you might define that criteria in a road policy instead of an ordinance which requires review and approval and such. Are there other questions?
I don't have any questions. I have comments, but I'm waiting for you to.
Oh, again, we provided the matrix, this document, and the rationale. So, yes, questions, statements?
So I guess I'll start and say, Rick, you don't look any older today than you did before you started this. And I think that's truly amazing because this is a monumental task that we asked you to tackle. And I am extremely thankful for the amount of time and energy that you have put into this, as well as all the rest of the members of the committee. I know that this has been something that has been a topic that many select boards have had to deal with and have struggled with, and I think this is a great first step. I'm sure that we will receive a lot of input once we go to the next phase of having public comment, but I really want to commend you and the rest of the members of the committee on putting this forward to us so that we can begin to have a discussion and start to move this forward. So really, truly, thank you so much.
Well said, Bob. I'll put a motion on the table. I move to accept the committee's report and to discharge the Class 4 Road Committee with abundant thanks.
I would second that.
Any more discussion?
I'd like to have us draft a letter to all the members of the committee that the board can sign and send out to all of them, thanking them all each individually. So if we could do that, that'd be good.
I'd just like to say, since I staffed the committee, I enjoyed our time together. I think we all learned a lot. I'd like to thank Nori Gary, even though he had to leave short. He was a valuable asset to the committee, I thought. He had some great ideas. He was very involved. And Craig as well, he was joined us on all the site visits, was unable to participate in some of the committee meetings, but he had some good input as well during the site visit. So I enjoyed it. It was a lot of work, and I think these guys worked really hard, and I think everyone learned much more.
Yeah, I'll say the same. I think probably one of the most valuable aspects of this was to have the committee members visit these roads and see for themselves, learn about the roads, learn the history of the roads. We did delve into a lot of background on these roads, and there was a lot of learning that took place. And I think, speaking for the other committee members, they also appreciated and even enjoyed being on the committee, as challenging as some of the discussion and recommendations were.
I appreciated the organization and the different aspects of the report. Very comprehensive. And I like the signage. You know, having uniform signage, I think, would be a very good thing. And let people know what are the Class 4 roads in the town, and when they come across one.
Also, like where they begin and where they end.
Yeah, indeed.
It's not always clear.
That's very good. Having read it through once, I will absorb it further so that we can have further discussion and engage the public. And again, I invite anybody to put in writing their comments so that we can incorporate those in our edits, in our discussion.
And just one minor comment is we were notified even just today that there were some clerical and some spelling errors that we'd like to correct in this document.
Right. Yeah, that'd be good. We will polish it. Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion carries 2-0. Many thanks.
Thank you, Rick.
So we're now at 6:34 and we're on to the budget 4 version fiscal year 2025.
Just kidding. I'll never change. I can't help it. So I'm a little distracted because I am in the midst of an animal control issue, working with the state police on something. So hopefully we can get through this and through the rest of our meeting before I have to go deal with that. There's only a handful of things that I have as changed from version 3 to version 4 for fiscal year 25. I sent you all the packet. There's literally 4 items that have changed. They're highlighted in a dark pinkish red color, and I will go over those. If there's anything else that you're thinking about or that comes to mind, let me know. The page numbers are 1 off because I numbered the discussion page. But the first item is the traffic calming item, which is a line number 146 under purchased services. We increased that from last year to 3,500. The reason it changed from version 3 to version 4 is simply because not only are we purchasing the two new signs to match the 2 new signs that we bought this year, but we also pay $1,500 for the software each year. So that fee has to also be involved. And that gives us a little extra in case it runs over what the cost was last year, assuming that the prices may be slightly different. The next one is line 150, which is the Underhill Jericho Fire Department. Select Board, you guys all met with Jericho and the fire department last week. And based on that, my understanding is that the budget that was put forth last time that was in the last version, but I didn't have it finalized, has been finalized. So that is a 11.2% increase over last year, or about $36,000 from over last year. And the next one is moving down to the highway lines. There's a couple there on page, one moment. Page 9, we have line number 253 and 254. We agreed, and if there needs to be any questions, Russ is still here, so he can answer those questions, but we agreed that the gravel had been increased a few years back for other reasons, and that we felt confident that $90,000 would be enough for the gravel for this year. And then the chloride is the price of the contract that we discussed earlier in this meeting. And that's the 20,000 gallons at $1.28 a gallon, which includes the 2 containers and the piece of equipment that allows us to spray the roads with the solution. So that is what has changed, and those are the only items that changed from the last version to this version. So unless there is something else that comes up between now and next week, the final pieces are just to have executive session to finalize the numbers for salaries and benefits, and anything that needs to be adjusted or changed there. And then I think we're on course to have this finalized so that we can hit our deadline. But we are pretty tight to reaching our deadline. What is the drop dead date on that one?
So the next regular meeting is the first day we're allowed to sign, or you're allowed to sign the warning. And that's the date that we've set up with the printer for the day after the town report would go to the printer. So basically we're working on the town report. We can segue into that in the next line item and talk about that after the warning. But that's the plan as of now.
We had received a correspondence from Alan Morse a while ago about recommendations for the park. I don't think that those have been discussed or incorporated any of those recommendations into this budget, but I would like to bring that back up and would like to have a conversation about enhancing the park at the end of Park Street.
Veterans Park?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's high time that we invest some resources into that park.
So I don't want to skip ahead too much, but this is the reality of the situation. There's a looming petition, as we all know, that's circulating that regards to the number of select board members. It's very possible that petition will be presented to the select board sometime next week. I think it's very possible that there may have to be a short special meeting next Thursday before the signing of the warning and the final budget on the 25th. So if you'd like, I can try to contact Alan and see if we can try to pull something together for that special meeting, if you choose to have it, and see what I can do. So I'm more than happy to work on that and contact Alan and try to get some rough numbers about what. And you're envisioning like maybe a rehab of the fountain.
Correct.
That sort of thing. Okay.
Yep.
I will work on that this week.
It's been 50 some odd years that it's not functioned properly, plus. So I think it's time that we honor the veterans.
Well, if Brad can pull together that, we can get some numbers for that. We can have those in for version 5.
That's my desire, hope that we can discuss adding that into the budget this go around,
Sounds good.
if everybody else agrees.
Sounds good to me.
Can I say something?
Good point.
One thing, I don't know if it's even too late or impossible, but this discussion has happened before or been talked about, but our radio communications in Underhill is a little bit to be desired. And what I mean by that is when I'm on Irish Settlement Road, I cannot contact other highway members that are in other parts of the town. And if something was to come up on that end of town and I'm in a bad situation, I don't even have cell service over in that side of town. And dealing with this yesterday, trying to contact other road crew members with no responses is kind of concerning to me. You know, luckily it was not any dire emergency. It was more the fact of just trying to communicate with what's going on, which is very important in a day like yesterday, because there'll be more of those days, or even just in general, if something was to happen. I have no idea what it costs, but it seems to me that today's technology, when I can talk to the fire department anywhere in town, I can talk to the town of Jericho anywhere in town, I can talk to Essex Rescue if I wanted to, or the bus garage I can talk to anywhere in town, but I can't even talk to all my crew. So I don't know, Bob, maybe you know more about that being in the fire service, if it's a repeater or what it is that we should invest in. And maybe now's not even the time, but I'm concerned with our radio communications and feel that we need to do something to enhance the ability to communicate to one another throughout the town of Underhill.
Thank you. I think it's storms like we just experienced that make us all realize how important communication is. And when we don't have it, it really it causes a lot of anxiety that, you know, we don't need to have, you know, when we need to be focused on trying to get the job done as efficiently as possible because time is somewhat critical. I do know that the leasing or using the mountain and the repeaters that many businesses use is a possibility. I would encourage communication to begin with the Radio North group to find out how much it would cost for the town of Underhill to look into communication that we can use the state antenna on the top of Mount Mansfield, and then see if that would maybe give us a price on if the equipment that we have is adequate, or if we need to buy additional equipment for our trucks and our people, if that would make a lot more sense. And then utilize the mountain, seeing as how we're at the bottom, that hopefully that would make a lot more sense for us to be able to reach out and communicate. But I do think it's really important that if Brad is out and he has a handheld radio and he really needs some help over there, and you're on the other end of town and cell phones don't work, that the two-way radio communication is key. So I think it's just efficiency that, we're a small town and we need to be as efficient as possible with our resources. So I think it'd be money well spent. So I can work with both of you to talk with the Radio North group and to find out like how much that would cost. And, we can discuss it maybe next week during a budget presentation. But I do think it's a good idea to talk about it now. And even if we have to phase it in, like, if we know it's going to cost $10,000, maybe we put $3,000 towards it this year, and we just keep adding to it until we get the system that we completely need. And I do think that while we're on the topic, that I know Brad does not have two-way radio communication in his vehicle or a handheld portable, and I know that you probably don't either, Russ. And I do think that having those pieces of equipment available to both of you, and maybe a spare here, would be really important to have, so that when you're coming in, you could reach out to Brad or whoever, if you're utilizing your own personal vehicle or had your two-way radio, and maybe that's something that all the guys on the road crew should have, so that if you have to do traffic control or whatever the case may be, that you'd have that ability to be able to communicate, because I think it's so important. So thank you for bringing it up.
The only thing I want to say about that is I think it is critical. I think it's important. I think we need to get some real numbers and put them onto this budget and see what it looks like. And also, there is, these are the kinds of things where if we need it and we don't want to see it affect the tax rate, that we can discuss, and we're going to start to talk about the warning. But if there's some money to go into reserves, that maybe some reserve money could be used to purchase something like that. That would be an investment in our town's safety. I don't think there's anything that's possibly more important than that. And I heard you struggling this morning on the radio to talk to Scott. So I often hear it, and when I'm alone here in the early mornings, I hear them talking on the radio, and I often hear, Scott, do you copy over? And often don't hear a response. So,
yeah, I think about it every time I turn around at the end of Dune Road, which Bob is kind of a tight area and a tricky area. And if I was to get stuck at 4 o'clock in the morning at the end of Dune Road,
You're out of luck.
I am out of luck. Unless I go down and knock on your parents' door, Bob, and they probably don't want to see me at 4 in the morning. I'm sure they would.
They'd love to see any time.
They would accept me, but I wouldn't want to have to do that. But it's not even for storms like yesterday. It's the everyday plowing and the sand. It doesn't matter. I mean, things happen, and it could be even as simple as a breakdown. I mean, the truck could break down, or and even if it was $10,000, I mean, to take 3 years to purchase something like that, I don't think it would be a great idea. I mean, I respect what you're saying to cut the cost of the taxpayers, but in the scheme of things, this is important. And I have a radio in my truck, it's a personal radio that I can hear, but I just can't talk out, so that doesn't work very well. If it can be repaired, I'm happy to use my own radio that I have. I just got to get it repaired. I'm sure.
I'd like to check with Andy too to see if the fire department has anything that they're like phasing out, maybe too. It might be a good way to get started. But yeah, just having, like, yesterday was really frustrating. Like, especially on Paul Cook Road, you can get one spot and you could talk. but then you're over on Irish and you're done, you know. Disberts, you're done.
And the handhelds are a great idea as well for traffic control. That's great. And, you know, just having a few of those would be very, very important.
There's some very strategic places in town, people we know, high pieces of ground. I don't know what kind of power antennas need, if they need power, or I'm assuming they do. I was involved when, and I think Dan was here too, when we switched all of our radios from analog to digital. You know, it was the narrow banding law that the feds laid down. So we had to narrow the band. And the analog days were pretty good because the signal was so wide that it could reach. It's like the old analog cell phones. You used to those bag phones, you could call from anywhere. They were amazing. But once we switched to the digital world, things tightened up. So,
you know, I think we still have some of the older radios in some of our equipment because not everything has the new radios.
yeah, it could be maybe the grader still has
I think the grader actually has a digital one,
Okay.
I believe, but like the pickup has an old radio in it. The Spirit truck, which is fine, you know, for certain things, but I think the pickup should have a, you know,
The pickup should have the latest technology in it.
the excavator has an old one in it that's usually used just at the site, talking back and forth, back up, go forward, whatever. But again, maybe it's just time to upgrade. I think it'd be money well spent. I really don't think anybody would really qualm that. But anyways, if you'd like me to reach out to Radio North, I mean, I know the guys down there, I could.
Yeah, I think that would be,
process.
I think that would be time well spent.
Okay. All right. Let's work with Brad as well, and we'll see what we can come up with. Thank you for listening to that. I appreciate it very much.
There's nothing like a storm like this that can bring out, you know, what we need. And as good as our response and the success of everybody working together was, is there anything else that we could have used that we didn't have? Or,
Well, I think that the highway department, there's no doubt that they could use a generator.
well, that's
It's on order, but
right.
it's on order, but do you have power there yet?
No.
Yeah, there's still not power at the town highway department, so.
So I think that communication, and maybe this is where I need to step up as the emergency management director, need to contact Green Mountain Power, the co-op services, the garage. That's a question. I think it's, so the garage is critical infrastructure. So like it or not, that's more important that gets back online than, I hate saying this, but it's the truth. We can't service everybody else if we can't take care of that building. It's very difficult. So I can reach out to the co-op and ask if that could be made a priority to get power restored back to that building. And I don't know, you know, what the complications are, what the issue is, but that building needs to be identified as critical infrastructure for the town, because it is. And, you know, hopefully, once the generator gets online, that need won't be as high, but right now it's pretty high in my estimation. I do know that we can go, Dan, I guess I just want to say that I am still amazed at the level of dedication and service that the town employees give to this town. It's really, truly remarkable that we have our town administrator that's getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock and saying, I got to come in. We have the road crew that hits home runs almost all winter long. And for them to do what they do is amazing.
Here.
Yeah, makes us whole.
We got a good thing going.
we do.
Dan, to answer your question, is there anything else that we could have used? Was probably some chainsaws that ran. We have some older chainsaws that should be upgraded. I don't know how old they are, but they are fairly old. They're good saws when they run, but we do have a couple that are would run a bit, then not run a bit, not run. Not very handy when you're trying to cut a tree, but I would like to upgrade a couple chainsaws, which they're probably in the tune of $700 a piece, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's essential equipment.
Also, just to get them serviced well, and it's a hard time to, well, when can you go, give them all your saws? You don't want to be caught.
We take the time, we go through them, we sharpen them, we, clean them, and you run them a little bit there. They're running good, but then you put them in your truck and you ride around, you go to take it out and you go to run it and, and you're continually, I don't believe that if the question comes up that electric is the thing, I don't believe electric is the thing to have in a storm like this, but
The battery operated one, I know the fire department went to those, and maybe they don't have to do anything that heavy duty, but
they cut some pretty good trees for us yesterday, but I did hear massive, we got to go back and charge our batteries, which instead of fueling them and oiling them, it made me chuckle just a little bit, but I can't complain. Those guys and girls, whoever is out there, they did a great job for us, helping us. So, but I would like to upgrade a couple saws.
so the battery stuff really wouldn't be.
We have one battery operated saw, which works great to go out and, trim up a couple small things or something like that. But when you get into a storm like yesterday, I don't see where a battery chainsaw is our answer.
Right. I have both at home, and the battery run is great for little stuff.
Yeah.
Especially in the cold, the batteries don't stay charged and they don't last as long.
Right.
I probably could get a saw in there, just utilizing our current budget too, so.
Exactly. There's
Yep.
enough room in there. I think this is getting,
Agree. All
Yeah,
right.
So I just want to answer that question.
very good.
Other than that, it was, again, what Bob said. The fact that we had people calling the day before and saying, hey, Russ, if you need our help or my help. Gordon was calling to offer his assistance. Wade Bosley. To me, that was just an awe to have those two contact me and me not having to contact them. They just contacted me. And that to me I was honored to have those calls. I really was.
Good.
so it's 6:58 and the warning is on the agenda. I was just looking, I thought we'd come up with a number for the dump truck, didn't we? Didn't we finalize that number? So, right, so I'll look, no, but remember we concluded on perhaps we could see it in the minutes from last week. Yeah, I'm just going to refer back here so I can refresh everybody's memory. Okay, so not to exceed 10,000. Well, I'm talking about the new truck now.
Same discussion. That was the same discussion. It was the upgrading to the angle plow and the hydraulics.
I see that.
One was 1,500 for the plow, 1,600 for the hydraulics, or vice versa. So it was like $3,100 for that, to add to that. I think it was 283.6, something like that, for the complete package.
But we came out with I guess my point is we came out with a kind of a round number to put on the warning. And I'm not seeing what that was. Jennifer, do you remember that? Sherry was keeping up on the warning here and I'm not, like in the end, what are we going to borrow in the end? Like we had the price of the truck And then I think you were going to try to add a little bit on for surcharges.
Yeah,
In case, but not
In
in
we
case.
definitely had a number.
But 290 was the number we talked about downstairs. In total, not at a select board meeting, but just when I had given Sherry the numbers from after we had our discussion here, that got approved to add to it. I want to say it was 286, some change.
I know we talked about it at the board meeting, and I know someone said, and we explained that once it's in the warning, even if it, let's just say you agreed to 300, and I remember we had the discussion, and then we said, the way you worded in the warning is, shall the town agree to borrow up
Yeah, up
to,
to.
and I feel like you rounded it up to either 295 or something, or so, it was, but we did talk about it in a select board meeting.
But that shouldn't be too hard to call.
Yeah,
up
we'll
then.
find it.
Okay, so anyway, and other than that, there's nothing that's changed to the warning since the last time. You clarified the 100,000 that was discussed
Yeah,
at
we
town meeting the
clarified
year
that.
prior.
So it doesn't have to be on the warning.
So there's really nothing,
There will be, and we'll, Sherry and I will know after tomorrow, we're going to be hearing from VLCT. So this is kind of important, that it looks like we are going to have a surplus. I will have the numbers probably tomorrow. I believe both in the highway fund and in the general fund from fiscal year 23, from the audit that we're just completing. So Sherry's going to confirm all this tomorrow, but I believe that we will need to, when there's a surplus in a fund, it can't just stay in the fund and roll over. There has to be, the voters have to, highway fund surplus, I think,
can roll
can
over.
roll over.
That can roll over.
But general fund surplus, you have to have a recommendation for the voters to make to vote on what to do with that surplus. So we will have a recommendation about, we'll know how much that is, and we'll have a recommendation for the select board in the next couple of days.
So Donna, thank goodness for Donna. Donna just chimed in, said that December 21st, you agreed on 290.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. So I'm just going to fill that in, make sure that's on there. And that's what kind of came to mind, but I didn't want to say.
There's something around there.
So I want to back up. You mentioned earlier, Russ, that you had a number of saws that were not working properly. How many are those that you have that are in need of replacement?
We currently have 5 saws. One is, I would say, 2 to 3 years old. And the other 4, I don't know how old they are. There's a couple of them that are good, that work great. They all work, except for when
they don't.
gets, but I would say at least 2, maybe 3 would, and everything, it's just, everything needs to be upgraded. Doesn't mean it's just like it's a truck or a grader or whatever, the things need to be upgraded. The saws, I would say at least 2 would be great.
So I'm going to move that with this pending storm coming, I'm going to move that we authorize the purchase of 3 saws, not to exceed, I just looked on Steel's website, the most expensive professional grade steel chainsaw that cost is $2,300. So I'm going to move that we authorize this expenditure of up to not to exceed $6,000 to purchase 3 chainsaws to be made available prior to this weekend if possible, and to have them on hand so that we are ready for the next storm and we can hopefully turn around and sell the used equipment and defray some of that cost. But I would rather have good working equipment prior to a pending storm or future storms that are going to be coming. So I'd like to make that a priority, and that's why I'd like to move to have that purchase done sooner rather than later.
I'll second that. Discussion?
It's invaluable. The guys work really hard, and I think we need to continue to support them and give them the equipment that they need to do their job efficiently. And having a piece of equipment that does not function properly and it's outdated, and to hear that coming from road supervisor, I think we need to act upon that, and we can deal with, getting rid of or selling those pieces of equipment down the road, but I think we need to support them and give them the equipment that they need. So that's why I made the motion.
I'm wondering on the other equipment, if it makes sense, not necessarily all of them, but take the best ones and keep them in standby, get them serviced, because getting saws serviced is a tough thing. It would be good to have backups. Even new saws need servicing at some point, and you never know when something goes wrong. But I wouldn't want to ditch all the old equipment right away.
My thought was is that worst case scenario is that let's buy 3 good saws. Hopefully you can get it done for a lot less than $6,000, but give you at least $6,000 to get that done, and then you can figure out a plan on what you want to do with the worst 3 of the bunch, and if it makes sense to invest some time and energy into getting them as tuned up as you can, or unload them. But I think we rely upon you and the crew to make that final decision and go from there. But I want you guys to have my thought is I really want you to have the equipment ready to go for the next time you're called upon to cut stuff.
I would think that, yeah, 1,000 a piece would probably be a good range, but the motion's fine. I'm not saying that, but I just would like to put in a plug for a place, the Enosburg, the guys in Enosburg. They sell really good saws. They're well known to be some of the best saw mechanics in the state. A lot of loggers for your local loggers go there. I'm sure there's some other places too, but they carry a really large selection of good professional saws.
Well, I'm hopeful that Russ will be able to figure this out fairly quickly. I don't want to overthink it.
I am up for the task, but I'd like to say thank you for that motion. That means a lot, that you're looking out for our crew and having the tools that we need, and I think that's great. One thing, and I think Brad will agree with me, is pole saws are a pretty remarkable tool. We do have one, and we use it a lot when we're clearing roadsides, and we used it a lot yesterday. It allows us to stand back to cut some more of maybe a dangerous situation, where you can stand back. If I could, in that number, if I could get another pole saw into that number,
I guess I can amend that to get up to 3 saws and any additional equipment that you feel necessary to assist the town in dealing with storm-related, duties. I would be totally fine with that. So meaning that if you need to get 3 saws and a pole saw, I'd be okay with that. I would just rather you stay, not exceed $6,000.
I'll second that amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. The amendment passes. Now we have a motion. Are we ready to vote on the motion?
Yep.
All in favor
Aye.
of the motion to allocate up to, but not to exceed $6,000 for new saws, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 2-0.
Thank you again for myself and the crew.
It will make everything more efficient as well, because if you're not cranking away on a saw for 15 minutes, that means you can cut for 15 minutes longer.
Well, I was with Russ yesterday around Paul Cook, and he's like, well, he said, I could cut that, but I said, I can get it started, but I don't know if it's going to keep running. So, anyway, that was a nice old Husky. Some of these are very sought after saws because they were made in the day when saws were really made well. Not to say that they're not made well today, but different materials, and they're well sought after, and they're still have some value.
There's nothing more frustrating than when you go to use a piece of equipment and it doesn't work properly.
True. Okay, so we're still on the warning, but I guess we've got the warning situated. I just want to discuss the town report briefly. So we've got everything almost everything together. Of course, Jennifer will pull her finance pages together. I know that's a lot of work for Jennifer. That's a lot that goes into that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get them all done.
Yeah. So,
That was a hint.
and we've got a few,
Gentle hint.
few committee chairs and myself. Russ has done his report, and we took your suggestion, Bob. I think you added some wordage about helping. It's hard with the town report because really it's a fiscal year 23 town report, but it's hard not to talk about things that happened after.
Yeah, because we're halfway through.
So it's more like an annual report in that respect. As far as budget wise, it's our fiscal year, but as far as life wise, it's our year, right? So, but I still need to finish mine. We're looking for one from Dan and the select board. But so we kind of thought about dedicating it right to the ARPA funds, correct? That was our thought. And I just wanted to brainstorm some ideas. So I did a little searching for like a logo, like a national logo for
I have
ARPA.
all that.
Just,
I've got national logos. I've got all the pictures.
so maybe I see putting something on the front page like the American Rescue Plan and, a logo like that on the front page. And then Jennifer's got plenty of pictures from the awards.
I took pictures of every award that we did.
But if there's any other ideas of what you can, any input you could give would be great. But that's what we're thinking.
We were thinking that we could put the picture, have the cover and then have a couple of pages in it, like, several pages with the photos and what the ARPA fund did for that group. So it would have the picture and then it would say, whatever.
Or it could not necessarily be a picture of granting the award, but it could be a picture of what they did with it. Like, here's the, here's all the new tools.
Like the
from
picture
fire
of the town pond.
Right, town
the new
pond
fence.
is a beautiful thing, and the picture of here's the fire department with their new tools and, stuff like that, and try to keep it so it's different.
I think it's important for the community to understand where that money went. And I think it's going to be something that people looking back are going to remember. And if they come across that town report, they'll see some historical photographs and, who played a part in that. So I think it's important that they be photographed. And if you can record people's names that were on the ARPA committee, I think that's important as well. Because they certainly invested a lot of time and energy into helping this town with those, the awarding and working through all those suggestions that came in. So,
okay, we'll work on that.
We'll work on that. And so, yeah.
It is a creative way of doing the report because we have to make a report anyway as part of the town report. And this highlights it and brings it up. And it's not something that happens every year.
All right, so we'll do that.
I know you're going to go through the warrants in the minutes, but I've been in touch with Patty, so I don't know when it's appropriate for me to mention where she's at on things.
We're at closing public comment, but there's no one here from the public, Dan,
So we will move on to warrants and minutes, but you do have a comment?
Well, yeah, I just wanted you guys to know that I've been in touch with Patty because we're supposed to have a executive session. The tree service just left and I had asked her if she wanted me to pick her up, but she's not feeling well at all. She literally just got done with that and now they have to evacuate the dogs again for tomorrow's event. So she's kind of got her hands full tonight. So she said that she would definitely make herself available for a special meeting next week if you wanted to table what we were going to talk about tonight and put it all into a special meeting next week, or if you wanted to discuss the items that you were planning to discuss tonight, she certainly would trust the two of you to take care of it. So she said she'd go either way, up to you guys.
Well, one of the things.
So I just wanted to tell you that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we, we keep kicking us down the road and we're kind of almost missing deadline soon. But I know that Patty and I met in a select board meeting when Bob wasn't here, and I may take the opportunity to have a discussion with Bob, about the material so that we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And there may be some obvious things that we do feel comfortable about passing. And so we can talk about that when we get into executive session.
Perfect.
Okay.
I just wanted to pass that on.
Yeah, thank you. So warrants and minutes.
I got them all in that folder if you want, Dan. There,
Okay, yeah,
everything's in order.
good.
I hope. I did, yeah.
So I move
I hate paper clips.
that we accept the payroll warrant for 1/24/2024. Is there a second?
Yep, second.
Any discussion?
They all like to get paid.
Getting paid is good.
Yes?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion passes 2-0. I move that we accept the AP warrants for 12/1 or 12/1/2023 to 1/31/2024. And these must be the automatic payments that,
Yes, those are the auto pay,
okay.
the next one in line. And then it's the AP after that.
Is there a second?
Yep, second.
Any discussion on these?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion carries 2-0. And we have the AP warrants for 1/11/2024. And these are the current bills. Is there a second?
Yep, second.
Is there a discussion on any of these or questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion carries 2-0. And we have the select board meeting minutes for December 21st, 2023. And this was a special select board meeting, but it was rescheduled because of the holiday. To be before Christmas as opposed to after. Any second on that?
Yep, second.
Any corrections, additions?
No.
It is pretty clear to me, and I find when I read through them, no errors. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion carries 2-0. Okay. Member items. Correspondence. Announcements. I have none.
Not this time.
So I mentioned the looming petition, and I think it would be wise to have a special meeting, just one special meeting between now and your regular meeting, just to make sure we could, and what I almost envision it being is a final kind of budget review. And we could pitch it that way. And so the public, if they have anything to say, or anything to bring up at that point, usually that never happens, but give the public a final chance to say anything they'd like. And then on the 25th, we'd be just basically going through the motions, signing the warning, accepting the final budget, that sort of thing, if that sounds okay.
Yeah,
to everybody. And that'll put us in really good place. Because as I say, it's the first day we can officially sign the warning, and it puts our town report. We get things out really early. That feels always feels good when you can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
It does. So, so we'll try to possibly think about doing that. It would be on, what's the date on that? It would be the 18th for a possible special meeting. Same time, same channel.
You don't want to meet in Jericho?
No,
No?
I would not.
You have some really weird lighting there.
Yeah, I didn't notice
In that room.
in that room. Yeah, yeah.
It was what?
It was kind of dark.
No.
Well, I think he had the lights off for the.
I couldn't
for the-
see the screen very well.
Yeah, he had the lights off for the screen.
Right. It's almost like being at home. Yeah.
All right, so
Oh, excuse
that's it. We're at 7:22 and you're at your executive session line, so.
So you've confirmed that next week with Patty as well?
I will,
Okay.
but it sounds like Thursdays are gonna work out, so hopefully it will.
Yeah, I think so.
Would you text her and ask her if the 18th would work at 6 PM? Since you've been in communication?
Working tomorrow?
So I move,
Go executive session?
yeah.
Okay.
I move that we enter executive session under 1 VSA Section 313A3 for the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee. There's a second.
Yeah, second.
Discussion.
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Please
Good night.
stop the recording.